What's the meaning of life? That would be a wild question for me to try and answer for you, but I would like to share some things you might find interesting. Viktor Frankl said, asking the meaning of your life is like asking what's the best move in chess. The best move is dependent on where you are in the game. It's dependent on what pieces you have to play. It's dependent on where they are in relation to your opposition. It's dependent on who your opponent is. Similarly, the meaning of your life is dependent on where you are. It's dependent on your unique set of challenges and circumstances. It's dependent on what life is asking you in that particular moment. Which takes me to what Jason Wilson said when he said, if you ask someone, who are you? A more well-rounded person would say something like, I am who I need to be in any given set of circumstances. Why? Well, when we look at the 5-factor model of personality, which you might hear Jordan Peterson speak about, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, depending on how much of these we have, let's say, that makes up what our personality looks like. But let's take openness. That's openness to experience. That would suggest a level of adaptability. That would suggest being open to allowing experience to mold you and shape you. Why? Because life is always asking you a question by way of your circumstances. And for you to be able to answer accordingly and healthily, you might need to be adaptable. You might not need to be who you think you are right now. Carl Rogers said the tendency of all living things is towards growth. It's towards actualization. It's towards the fulfilling of one's potential. As we fulfill our potential, it's not just for us, we're social creatures. And as we grow, as we bloom into who we are, that impacts the world around us. So a question might also be, how can I serve the world around me? How can I serve my sphere of influence, given the circumstances we find ourselves in, given my temperament, given my strengths and my weaknesses, given the challenge that life has given me, the question life is asking me, what life is asking me to bring forth out of myself right now. What can I do? And how we answer that question is inextricably tied with the meaning of our life, who we become. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. When you think of any of your heroes, what does their life mean to you? What does their life represent to you? That's going to be tied in with how they answered the challenges that they faced, the circumstances they were put into. The tendency is still towards growth, towards actualization and fulfillment of potential, because if you're not growing in that direction, then you're going towards the opposite of life. But it depended on who they were and where they were dropped in their given time. If they dropped in the ocean, if they dropped on land, if they dropped under a tyranny, if they dropped in a village, the tendency will be the same, but how their actualization will look is different. So when you ask yourself, what's the meaning of your life? It might be worth looking at your circumstances, the challenges you're facing, the feelings you have, the experiences you have, your sphere of influence, the people around you, and asking, what is life asking of me right now? How do I move towards fulfillment of my potential? How do I serve my sphere of influence? How do I grow? How can I actualize? I find that an interesting way to look at it, and I thought I'd share it.